I found a hidden door in my basement, and it changed everything about my family. I moved into this house last summer. It wasn't anything special, a typical two-story colonial in a quiet suburban neighborhood. My husband Alex and I were thrilled. It was a huge step up from our cramped apartment downtown, and we were ready to start a new chapter. The house had a basement, a feature we hadn't had before. Alex joked about turning it into a man cave, but for now it was just a place to store old boxes and holiday decorations. Everything seemed perfectly normal, at least at first. A few months after moving in, I noticed something strange. The basement was always colder than the rest of the house. Not by a little, a lot. We checked the HVAC system, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Then, one night, I heard a faint thumping sound coming from below. It wasn't rhythmic, like pipes or machinery, but erratic, almost like footsteps. Alex brushed it off. "It's just the house settling," he said. But I wasn't convinced. One Saturday, while Alex was out running errands, I decided to do a thorough cleaning of the basement. Armed with a broom, I moved aside boxes and furniture, determined to get to the bottom of the weird vibes I kept getting. That's when I saw it, a small rectangular outline on the far wall. It was subtle, so subtle that if I hadn't been looking for it, I might have missed it. The outline was covered in the same drywall texture as the rest of the wall, but it was slightly uneven, as if someone had patched over it hastily. Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a hammer and began chipping away at the drywall. After about 15 minutes, I uncovered a wooden door. It was old, with rusted hinges and a tarnished brass handle. There was no lock, just a faint etching of a symbol I didn't recognize. My heart raced as I grabbed the handle and twisted. The door creaked open. Behind it was a narrow staircase leading downward. The air that wafted out was cold and damp, and it smelled faintly of earth and something metallic. Every logical part of me screamed to close the door and walk away, but something deeper urged me on. I grabbed a flashlight and descended. The staircase ended in a small chamber. The walls were lined with stone, and the floor was dirt. At the center of the room was an old wooden table. On it sat a thick leather-bound book, a rusty knife, and a glass jar filled with what looked like dried herbs. What caught my attention most, though, was the symbol carved into the table. It matched the one on the door. I picked up the book and flipped through it. It was written in a language I didn't recognize, but the pages were filled with strange diagrams and symbols. Some pages had illustrations of people standing in circles, surrounded by glowing lights. Others depicted grotesque creatures with twisted limbs and glowing eyes. I heard a sound behind me, a soft shuffling. Whipping around, I shone my flashlight, but there was nothing there. My heart hammered in my chest. Suddenly, the air felt suffocating, as if the walls were closing in. I bolted up the stairs, slamming the door behind me. When Alex got home, I told him everything. At first, he laughed, thinking I was playing some elaborate prank, but when I showed him the door and the book, his face turned pale. We spent hours researching the symbol online, but we couldn't find anything definitive. The closest match was an obscure occult group that had allegedly disbanded decades ago. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the book, the chamber, and the strange sound I'd heard. Around 2 a.m., I heard the thumping noise again, this time louder. I shook Alex awake, and we both went to the basement. The door was open. Inside the chamber, we found something new, footprints in the dirt floor. They weren't human. The toes were elongated, and the prints had an odd three-toed shape. They led from the table to the staircase and then stopped abruptly. Alex wanted to call the police, but I convinced him not to. What would we even say? "Hi, we found a creepy chamber in our basement, and now we're hearing noises and seeing weird footprints." They'd think we were insane. Over the next few weeks, the activity escalated. The thumping sounds became nightly occurrences. Objects in the house began moving on their own. One morning, we woke up to find the symbol from the book carved into our living room wall. Desperate, I decided to return to the chamber. This time, I brought the book upstairs to try to decipher it. Using online translation tools, I managed to piece together bits and pieces. The book described a ritual meant to open the veil between worlds. The symbol was a protective sigil, meant to keep whatever was summoned from crossing over. But here's the thing, the symbol in the chamber was incomplete. Part of it had been scratched out. I don't know what compelled me to do it, but I decided to redraw the symbol, completing the missing lines. As soon as I did, the house went silent. The thumping stopped. The air felt lighter, less oppressive. For the first time in weeks, we slept peacefully. A month later, we put the house on the market. We didn't tell the realtor about the chamber, and I prayed the next owners wouldn't stumble across it. But here's the thing. I've been having strange dreams. In them, I'm back in the chamber, standing at the table. The symbol glows, and I hear whispers in a language I can't understand. Last night, I woke up to find dirt on my hands and the faint outline of the symbol on my bedroom wall. I don't think we ever really left. The unearthly connection. After listing the house, Alex and I moved into a rented apartment while we waited for potential buyers. The experience had left us shaken, but we both believed it was time to put the oddities behind us. However, strange happenings continued to plague me, even in this new place. It began with the dreams. They intensified, becoming more vivid and disturbing. Each night I stood in the chamber, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching me. The whispers grew louder, echoing around the room like a haunting chorus, demanding my attention. Curiously, I started jotting down what I could recall upon waking. Symbols, phrases, and emotions swept over me as if I were channeling something beyond my understanding. Then one morning, I found a sliver of wood nestled in my pillow. I couldn't help but recognize it, as it was an old, weathered piece from the wooden table in the chamber. I had torn it out of my memory, not realizing some part of it still clung to me. My mental state spiraled as I tried to distance myself from the events that transpired. I contacted a local historian, hoping they could shed light on the occult group linked to the symbol. To my surprise, the historian had actively researched the very symbols I described. It turned out they were associated with ancient rites, meant for communion between worlds, not summoning, but bridging them. The historian urged me to attend a gathering of a similar interest where practitioners shared knowledge regarding the artifacts and the symbols of the past. Reluctant but curious, I went, thinking maybe engaging with others might help me sever the connection to that chamber. The evening unfolded with compelling discussions, and to my shock, a few participants recounted tales that mirrored mine closely. One individual spoke of a ritual gone wrong near our area, where a veil had been torn for a brief moment, giving way for things to seep through. Days turned to weeks, and I began feeling a compulsion to create again. I took out my sketchbook and began drawing the symbols from my dreams. It was therapeutic, but they were becoming eerily intricate, even more than what I recalled from the book. One night, I awoke to a sudden chill in the air, a sensation that I wasn't alone. Panic would have paralyzed me if I hadn't resolved to confront whatever this was. I took my drawings and sat in the middle of the room, the moonlight streaming in, illuminating the pages as I whispered my fears. The designs began to glow, almost faintly at first, and as they illuminated, I felt a surge of connection. I understood now. This was not about closing the chapter on my life in that house. It was an invitation to understand it. Weeks flowed into months, and eventually, the house sold. Though it filled me with relief, I never truly left. I carried the chamber with me. Now at the apartment, I learned to embrace the whispers, making sense of the messages they conveyed. The truth is, the hidden door had not merely changed everything about my family. It had opened me to a lineage of knowledge. To this day, I still draw and gather, no longer fearful. Instead, I seek out the ancient wisdom buried in my dreams, always ready to explore the other side of that veil, now partially known, yet still infinitely mysterious. And who knows? Perhaps one day, I might just finish what was started in that basement chamber, bridging the worlds on my terms.